Hi guys, and welcome to our virtual STEM festival. My name is Melanie Brooke with Loess Hills Agriculture in the Classroom. Loess Hills is a regional effort of the Iowa Ag Literacy Foundation. Well, in addition to doing agriculture in the classroom, I'm also a farmer, and farmers use STEM all the time. The science that we're going to talk about today is the soybean life cycle. If you can see over here on the wall, I've got an image of the soybean life cycle here, and soybeans start, as you guessed it, a soybean. Well, that's not really how they start. They have to start from a bag. Farmers don't use soybeans out of the field to plant. They have a specific type of soybean, a seed soybean, so it grows the best. It's pretty expensive to rent farm ground, and so you want to make sure your farm ground is as profitable as possible. The way farmers do that is they get good quality soybeans in order to grow. So after the soybean, after it's been planted, and farmers will plant in what time? Who knows when farmers plant? If you said spring, you're right. Farmers plant soybeans in the spring, usually in the Midwest, and so they'll plant the soybean. The soybean seed will germinate. Seeds need two things to germinate. They need heat and water in order to germinate. After they germinate, they become a sprout. The sprout turns into a bush. The bush needs a flower in order to produce fruit. The fruit or the pod is demonstrated. Next, the pods are green and open, and then you can see the pods dry out and turn brown. Now, a mature soybean plant looks something like this. You can see it's very tall. Soybeans can be 2 to 3 or even 4 feet tall, and when the seeds are dry, you can actually hear them. Okay, so soybean seeds, and then you go right back to the beginning of your soybean life cycle. It continues to go over and over. Now, a full-size soybean plant is not readily available in Iowa in the springtime, so my son suggested I check the bean head, and wouldn't you know it, this is a soybean plant from last year. So I've got some soybean seeds here to show you. They're round and very hard. You can hear them as they're dried out. Now, I've been germinating soybean seeds for the last couple of days, and I thought I could show you what they look like. Okay, well today I put 2 seeds into our CD case with a piece of napkin and some water, and so those soybean seeds are already starting to absorb moisture. They're already starting to develop that taproot that's going to burst out. The 2 parts of the soybean seed are joined by a little tiny black dot, and if you can see it, every soybean seed has one. There's a little tiny black dot right there, and that's called the hilum. And at that point, the soybean seed will start to split. After 2 days, our germinated soybeans look like this. So this was done just done 2 days ago. You can see the taproot, and you can see that the seed is starting to absorb the moisture. It only takes 3 days for those 2 soybeans. You can see each of the green cotyledons. Those will turn into the leaves, and that's each 1/2 of the soybean. You can see the taproot is starting to form. So these germinated very well. I kept them in not an incubator. I kept them in a greenhouse with a heat lamp, and so they germinated quite quickly, way quicker than they would in the field. This is an example of a 4-day germination. You can see the taproot is getting even longer. And these were done 5 days ago. Put it really close here so you can see. You can see the root is starting to get longer, and then these secondary roots, see all those little tiny ones coming out? Those secondary roots will start to form like an anchor. See, plants need roots to keep them attached to the soil. When we have a heavy rain or if the wind starts to blow, the plant will really use those roots. Now, after 5 days, my soybeans got big enough that I had to transplant them to a pot. These soybeans were put in the greenhouse 6 days ago, and you can see how tall and kind of wiggly they are. Does anybody know why this soybean might be so tall and might not look very much like a plant? Well, inside the greenhouse, there's no air. There's no change in temperature. There's no nothing that the plant needs to get used to, so it doesn't build up a strong root. This is a soybean that was probably planted 2 or 3 weeks ago. And the difference between the two, this one was planted planted inside a greenhouse, so it had no environmental changes to make its roots or strong or to make its stem sturdy. Now this guy, since he's about 2 or 3 weeks old, you can see here's where the 2 cotyledons are. You can compare. You see the 2 cotyledons on that one. And then these leaves start to branch out a lot better. And then this soybean plant is eventually going to turn into a bush, and that bush will need to flower. If you would like to germinate your own seeds at home, it's really quite simple. All you need is a CD case, a piece of napkin, lay it inside the CD case. You can also use a small napkin that's going to cover up our seed. So take a couple of seeds, and you can use corn kernels, or you can use any kind of flower seeds. Soybean seeds are something we have around, pretty readily available here in Iowa. I'll place the napkin on top, and then I need to just spread it with just a little bit of water. So the one thing you want to do is keep it moist, and then you can close your CD case. You can write the day on it, you can name your soybean, you can just watch it and make sure that it has adequate heat and adequate moisture. You'll want to make sure that it's growing, and then you can check on it each day. So I put it underneath a heat lamp, like that. But if you don't have a greenhouse, you can always put it up next to a window, or you could even put it in a Ziploc bag. Now the examples that I have for you are from the soybean life cycle lesson, which can be found on the Iowa Ag Literacy Foundation webpage under lesson plans. Some things that are also included in that lesson plan is this fun game where you can match the pictures, or you can put the pictures in order. So the first stage of our soybean life cycle is the dried soybeans. There we go, get a good seat. You can picture the hilum there. Then after the soybeans are planted in the soil and they start to sprout, after they've sprouted, they'll start to develop their leaves. Those 2 cotyledons will turn into leaves, hard green leaves. And I always thought that was so interesting, how a brown soybean seed could turn into a green plant. Here's pictures of rows of soybeans. Farmers plant their soybeans in rows. In the fall, they'll be harvested by a machine called a combine. Now, one thing that soybeans have to have in order to produce fruit is a flower. Soybean flowers can be about the size of your pinky, nail, excuse me. They can be pink, white, or purple. And soybeans are self-pollinated and wind-pollinated, so that they're a plant that needs a pollinator, does not need a pollinator in order to produce fruit. And then there's a small soybean seed. And then you can see they start to fill out. There's about 3 to 4 soybeans inside each pod, and farmers will try to harvest those, not now, not when they're wet, big lima bean looking things like that. Those are green and very, very soft. If those were to run through a machine, all you would have is soybean mush. So farmers need to wait until their fields are completely dry before they can harvest. Farmers harvest soybeans about 11% moisture, so about 89% dry and only 11% of it can be moist. That helps it to store. And here's what the soybeans look like out of the pods. And then if you've raised these soybeans for seed, then you start the process all over again. The next year you can plant the soybeans. But like I said, farmers do have to purchase their soybean seeds through an outside entity. Well, I do hope you've learned a little bit about soybeans today and you've enjoyed the STEM Festival. Farmers definitely use STEM all the time, and we thank you so much for watching. And if you decide to harvest or to germinate your own soybeans, good luck. Have a great day.